But the Socceroos are heading to North America to take on Canada and the USA in a pair of friendlies. This is perfect preparation for next year's World Cup, which of course is taking place in North America. Big opportunities here for a lot of these players and some new players coming into the squad that we're going to take a look at in just a moment. First of all, Saturday morning, these kickoff times, Australian Eastern Daylight Time, Saturday morning against Canada, and then the following Wednesday against USA. So big matches coming up for the Socceroos and I think really good to take on these two opponents. Some quality opposition here in Canada, in USA. There'll be a really good test to sort of see where this Socceroos team is at. We know we got the 2 wins, the 2 victories against New Zealand. I think we're expected to get those victories, to be fair. Nothing against New Zealand, but against Canada, USA, it'll be a really fascinating test for Tony Popovic and this squad of players. I want to take a deep dive into the form of the two sides, the two opponents coming up here for the Socceroos. Have a look at what their form is looking like heading into these couple of games. First of all, taking a look at Canada. This is their games just from 2025 so far. They've had a pretty busy 2025. They made it to the quarterfinals of the CONCACAF Gold Cup, losing out in a penalty shootout there. A couple of friendlies recently against Romania and Wales. A win against Romania, 3-0 win, and then the 1-0 win over Wales there as well for Canada. So they're taking some decent form into these couple of games against Socceroos. And of course, Canada, one of these host nations for the World Cup next year, will have huge hopes of having a really successful campaign at the World Cup next year, as will USA. We know they've got some really, really quality players in that squad, USA. This is a look at their games for 2025 so far. Again, you can see some mixed results. They've had some up and down performances so far this year, USA. As you can see, they made it to the final of the CONCACAF Gold Cup, losing out 2-1 to Mexico there. A couple recent friendlies for the USA, losing 2-0 to South Korea. But then they did defeat Japan 2-0 there, which was a big win for the USA over Japan. Of course, as we know, the Socceroos also took on Japan earlier this year in qualifying, and the Socceroos got the win in that game as well. So it's been an interesting sort of run of form for the USA. It hasn't been terrible. I mean, getting to the final of the Gold Cup is certainly a good result for the USA. And again, this will be a really good test for Australia coming up against a team who has a lot of players. This USA squad has a lot of players playing at some really, really good clubs over in Europe. We think of, Christian Pulisic, a lot of these guys, playing at a really, really good level. So it will be a great test for these players. Dom in our live chat says 3-0 win against USA. Dude, I'll tell you what, if we can get wins against both of these sides, that would be huge. I'm confident that we can get positive results against both teams. Owen's dropping a score prediction in, saying Australia 2, Canada 2. Reckons it'll be a 2-1 win for Australia over USA as well. Interesting. So in terms of the squad, let's dive into it because there's a lot to talk about here for the Socceroos. Now, looking at this lineup, of course, a number of these players can play several different positions. So, of course, these guys aren't locked into these roles. First of all, goalkeepers, Ryan, Izzo, Gauci. That goalkeeper position is looking so strong at the moment for Australia. Matty Ryan back in the squad. Now, this will be interesting. Paul Izzo had a great couple games against New Zealand last month. Fantastic couple games in his debut as well. His debut for the Socceroos. Matty Ryan, the Socceroos captain, now playing regularly at Levante and La Liga. Does he come in and start ahead of Paul Izzo? Or does Paul Izzo maintain his spot in the goalkeeper position? Lightning here in the live chat says Matty Ryan will play again. I think I would go for Matty Ryan. But this is maybe the strongest in a long time that our goalkeeping ranks has looked. Ryan, Izzo, Gauci, all playing regularly now. Joe Gauci over at Port Vale in League One in England. Izzo, of course, at Randers alongside Mo Toure. And Matty Ryan in the La Liga. It really is an interesting one for Tony Popovic. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe he does stick with Izzo, considering that we think back to Tony Popovic's first game in charge of the Socceroos, where he benched Matty Ryan and started Joe Gauci. Like, I don't think Tony Popovic is afraid to drop Matty Ryan to the bench. And if Paul Izzo's got the form, they'll give him a run. They'll give him the run. Chris in our live chat says you would have to use Matty Ryan in these games to see how he fares. I'm sure he'll do a great job if he is involved as well. Cat Rock in the live chat says, now is the time to give Izzo more of a go. We already know what Matty can do. That's true. I mean, he's always a reliable performer for Australia when he does start. Matty Ryan, so experienced now, the captain of the side. But Izzo, huge opportunity here for him as well. Or maybe, to throw a curveball in there, maybe you give Joe Gauci some more minutes as well. Let's talk about the defenders as well. Miller at right back. We've got Chikati. Gary is back in the squad. Degenek, Matthews, Burgess, Rolls. No real surprises in those centre-back positions. We've got Boss and Italiano joining the squad. News coming out this morning that Fran Karacic, unfortunately, pulling out of the squad for the second consecutive window due to medical reasons, I believe was the term that was stated. Jacob Italiano comes in, well-deserved call up for Jacob Italiano, who's been playing regularly for his club side in Austria. In terms of that starting back five, I would go for those players that I've listed there first. So it's going to be Miller, Chikati, Degenek, Burgess, Boss. That feels like it's, at the moment, Australia's strongest back five. A fit Harry Suter probably comes into that lineup as well. We'd love to see Italiano get some minutes also, but I would go for the starting five there as well. And yes, Suter is unfortunately still out injured. Hopefully he is returning soon. In terms of the midfield positions, those two central midfield positions, O'Neill Devlin, Yazbek, Ballard, and Robertson. We're all very excited to see Alex Robertson back in the Socceroos setup. How much involvement does he actually have? Because we've seen it from Popper, where he calls up players and everyone's like, yes, Adrian Segicic, finally. And then he gets no minutes. So could this be a similar situation for Alex Robertson, who joins up with the squad here for the first time in a long time for the Socceroos? Will he get a chance to show what he can do? He's got a lot of competition there. A lot of competition. Cammy Devlin's been in great form for Hearts in Scotland. I thought Max Ballard was very impressive in those two games against New Zealand, obviously scoring on his debut. Lightning also highlights that, yeah, I want Irvine. Irvine's the other one who's missing as well. Hey, Jackson Irvine, if he's fit, he probably comes back into that midfield as well. And then in terms of those forward positions, as Tarnley says here, D'Agostino is an interesting call-up. It certainly is. Nick D'Agostino hasn't been featuring too regularly so far this season, but Tony Popovic choosing to give the former Melbourne Victory, Perth Glory, Brisbane Roar striker an opportunity here for the Socceroos once again. Mitch Duke also returns in that striker position there as well, and of course Mo Toure. I think we can all agree, even Tony Popovic, we can all agree that I think Mo Toure is, if he's fit, he probably will be in every Socceroos squad leading into the World Cup, and he'll probably be, at this rate, the starting striker at the World Cup next year for the Socceroos. I think we've found our starting striker going forward. Mo Toure was so good against New Zealand, coming off the bench in game one, and had a great impact in game two from the start. Those wide positions as well. There's some interesting things to discuss here. Metcalf, Boyle, Hrustic. We know those guys can play sort of on any position there in those attacking positions. Iran Kunda, Arzani as well. It feels like Iran Kunda, again, with that performance in game two against New Zealand last month, he probably earns the starting spot in the lineup. Daniel Arzani, again, a really interesting one because he's a player who departed Melbourne Victory in the off-season, went back to Europe, now playing at Hungary, and just isn't really getting game time there. He isn't really playing all that much, which is a shame. We want our Aussie boys to be playing, regular football over there in Europe. Arzani seemingly hasn't really been able to really break into the matchday squad there in Hungary, which is a little bit concerning. So Aaron Kunda probably gets the start on left wing. I would go Metcalf at right wing there, and then I would start Toure as well. And hopefully there is game time. I would give game time to D'Agostino, Arzani, Robertson. Give these guys an opportunity to show Popper what they can give for this squad, to show him what they can do here for Australia. I don't mind it. I tell you what, when the squad was initially announced, there were some big surprises, and I was a bit confused. But I don't mind it this far out from the World Cup, utilizing this opportunity to rotate things around a little bit and give opportunities to some of these other guys who haven't featured as much for the Socceroos in recent times. And there's certainly some surprise call-ups here. But yeah, very, very interesting indeed. Some of these call-ups, as Adstar says, Robertson needs to play in his club. I mean, that's another thing as well. I mean, it's a common theme with a few of these players. Alex Robinson, some of these guys have had like limited minutes for their club side. Alex Robertson hasn't played for Cardiff City this season. That's why that call-up is so bizarre too, because it's not like he's been in great form for the club. There's been times in the past for the Socceroos where he's been in great club form and they haven't really called him up. But this has been a funny situation where he's at Cardiff City. I think he was out with injury a couple months ago. At the moment, unable to break into the matchday squad. So it's not like he's like, oh, he's got some really good club form. They should call up Alex Robertson. It's like, no. It's like he's not playing at all and he's in the squad, which does go against a little bit what Tony Popovic has been talking about. And of course, what is usually the case where your club form, if you're playing regularly, that puts you in, a position to get called up for the Socceroos. But that completely goes out the window with this selection here. Alex Robertson being called up to the squad despite not playing at all this season. But hey, I'm sort of, at this stage, Tony Popovic hasn't lost a game in charge of the Socceroos. We shouldn't forget that. So far, it's been very, very good up to this point. And hopefully it continues that way into the World Cup next year. So look, I trust Popper. He's giving an opportunity here to Robertson. And who knows? Maybe Robertson gets plenty of minutes in these games and really shows Australia what he can do as well. As Owen says here, Alex Robertson is still quality despite not playing. And as someone says in the live chat here, says, it's great that Popper is experimenting. Yeah. I feel like because he's got all these results now, hasn't lost so far, we can just give him that time to experiment a little bit, to rotate things around. Obviously, if the World Cup was starting tomorrow, I don't think this would be the squad. Nothing against the players selected, but you've got some top quality players missing out. So big games coming up for Australia. In terms of my score predictions for these two games, we'd love to hear from you guys as well. Who do you think is going to win these two games? Can the Socceroos come away with results in both of these matches? I tell you what, I think against Canada, I think we get a win. I think it'll be a narrow win there. I'm going to say 1-0. The USA game is going to be very, very interesting. It might be one of those games, maybe similar to that Japan game in qualifying, where we're having to do a lot of defending, keep that defensive solidity. And I think we will do all right at the back, but I'm going to maybe say a 1-1 draw there against the USA. We know the quality that they have in that squad, and I think they are capable of maybe at least breaking to Australia with one goal. We did see New Zealand breach Australia's defense there last month. So I would take a win against Canada, hopefully, and then maybe a draw against USA. Two results that, look, results obviously don't matter too much in these friendly matches, but at the same time, it's a good sort of barometer just to really see where this Socceroos side is at against some decent opposition. So Socceroos taking on Canada and USA next week. Very, very excited for these games. Let me know how you guys think these games are going to pan out for Australia and who you want to see feature in these matches for Tony Popovic's side.